and at this moment, the magistrate was hiding in fear under a wooden plank. Above him, zombies were feasting on people, and blood dripped onto his face, but he was too terrified to make a sound. Meanwhile, the masked man who had just fallen down had also turned into a zombie, leaving the magistrate and others screaming in terror. As they watched the zombies crawling in through the floor, the group quickly crawled to the other side. One of their companions, who was known for overeating, got stuck and became food for the zombies. The entire town had now become the territory of the zombies. They could only seek refuge in the prison, with the zombies closing in on them. However, their companions were too panicked to open the prison door. Fortunately, they managed to open it at the last moment, but one of their companions was bitten on the hand by a zombie while closing the door. Within seconds, the man mutated into a zombie himself. Cho-Beam-Pal, who had witnessed such a scene before, was too scared and could only hide behind Seobai. Fortunately, Seobai picked up a knife for self-defense and managed to kill the zombie. In another cell, his longtime roommate had also turned into a zombie. The man screamed in terror, begging for help. Luckily, they were locked on the same wooden plank, and the zombie couldn't reach him for the time being. On the other side, Yangshin was inside the city, saving the surviving people. They climbed to a higher place together, narrowly escaping the zombies. At that moment, a woman with a child rushed in, and they reached out to pull her up. However, a large group of zombies arrived from behind, and the woman was bitten. She pleaded with them to save her child, so they could only save the child. They watched as the woman became food for the zombies. Meanwhile, the survivors scattered throughout the city, trying to escape. The zombies quickly spread to the surrounding villages. A man hurriedly went to save his elderly father but was bitten when entering the house. In the next moment, he turned into a zombie and attacked his father. Meanwhile, Li Chong, who had escaped from the medical clinic, watched as a raging fire broke out not far from the city. He knew that the entire Dongni had fallen. On the river, a small boat floated by, but the boatman had already turned into a zombie. A large group of zombies was charging towards him not far away, and he had no time to think, only managing to escape in a panic. But whether it was the forest or the riverside, they were all filled with zombies. Just as he was about to meet his demise, his guard, Mu Young, arrived in time and saved him. The man prepared to escape on horseback, but the horse was bitten by a zombie, and Mu Young was tackled by a zombie. At a critical moment, Li Chang swiftly decapitated the zombie. Finally, the two of them followed the fleeing villagers to a military camp on the outskirts of the city. However, the gates of the camp were tightly shut, completely disregarding the pleas of the villagers. In order to save their lives, the villagers had no choice but to climb upwards. Meanwhile, the officials inside the camp, driven by self-preservation, ordered the unarmed villagers to be shot with arrows. They even used weapons to drive them away, and even when Crown Prince Li Chang tried to prove his identity, the officials didn't believe him. At the same time, a large horde of zombies rushed towards the crowd from behind, forcing Li Chang to escape once again. Countless people behind him became food for the zombies. Seeing that there was no way forward, Li Chang jumped into the lake. The zombies that followed him slowly sank to the bottom of the lake. Li Chang and the others immediately swam to the shore, and the zombies behind them didn't dare to enter the water. Meanwhile, inside the royal palace in the capital, the king of Joseon was bound by iron chains, clearly turned into a zombie. To stabilize his emotions, they waited until his daughter successfully gave birth. Every day, Jo Hakjo would feed the king a palace maid, and they would submerge the remaining bodies of the consumed king of Joseon into the bottom of the lake. After daybreak, to deceive onlookers, they would have palace maids apply makeup to the consumed king of Joseon. After the sun rose, all the zombies in Dongni seemed to fear the sunlight and climbed into dark places, becoming motionless. Some even jumped into wells, and everything seemed to return to calmness. The little girl hiding in the box slowly emerged, but the streets were already in ruins. The surviving people came out of their hiding places and began to explore their surroundings. The officials who had hidden in the military camp saw Cho-Beam-Pal, who had survived, and immediately expressed loyalty, claiming to have brought people to rescue him. Subsequently, they blamed all the mistakes on Yangshin, who relied on Cho-Beam-Pal, and foolish Cho-Beam-Pal actually believed them. However, the immediate priority was not punishment but to destroy all the dormant zombies. Otherwise, they would act again once night fell. Seobai told Cho-Beam-Pal that the only way to stop them was to burn the corpses or decapitate them. This statement was hindered by the mother of the magistrate, whose son had tragically died in the incident. She didn't care about the dead commoners, but her son, as a noble, could not be burned. The officials agreed with her, and they expressed their opinions on the inept Cho-Beam-Pal. They can burn the commoners but bury the nobles deep underground. At that moment, Li Chang, who walked among the crowd, voiced his opposition, stating that the safety of the people should be the priority. He then walked straight towards the officials and slapped one of them across the face, leaving the official bewildered. Li Chang wasted no time and revealed his identity token. Upon seeing the four-clawed dragon symbol, Cho Biampal immediately recognized Li Chang as the crown prince and knelt down. The officials realized the gravity of their actions and pleaded for mercy. Considering the urgent need for manpower, Li Chang spared the officials' lives for now, with the intention to hold them accountable once everything was resolved. He inquired about the remaining military strength and learned that there were fewer than 50 soldiers left. He dispersed the people to search for and arrange the bodies, then gathered them for a mass cremation. After completing these tasks, Li Chang immediately returned to the medical clinic to search for the medical records left by the royal physician. Upon discovering information about the resurrection plant, he speculated that his father, the king, had already passed away. He suspected that Zhou Hakzhou had used the resurrection plant to create the illusion of his father being alive. Now armed with the information about Xiaobai and the resurrection plant, Li Chang possessed substantial evidence. He needed a suitable ally to proceed. Li Chang planned to go to Anju to find his mentor, An Haiyan. Unbeknownst to him, the officials themselves, by offending the crown prince, were destined to meet their demise sooner or later. They began persuading Cho Biampal to secretly escape by boat. Taking advantage of the crown prince's ignorance, they fled with a group of officials and nobles. They showed no concern for the lives of the commoners on the shore, who cried for help. As they disappeared without a trace, it was only when the crown prince arrived at the dock that he learned the officials had not followed his instructions to cremate all the bodies. To safeguard the surviving commoners, Li Chang decided to lead the group back to the medical clinic. As it had some fencing for protection, they hurried towards the medical clinic together. However, along the way, a young girl discovered in horror that the rocks concealed corpses underneath. With daylight fading, they had to quicken their pace, or they would become fodder for the zombies. Unforeseen events always occur, and as the group hastened towards the medical clinic, a carriage became stuck on a stone. All the people on the carriage were elderly, weak, sick, or disabled. At the same time, the nearby corpses began to stir. Mu Yong, sensing the danger, wanted to persuade the crown prince to leave first. However, the crown prince was unwilling to abandon the people, as it would make him no different from Zhou Hakzhou and his accomplices. With everyone's combined effort, they managed to lift the carriage out and rushed towards the medical clinic swiftly. They encountered constant zombie attacks along the way, but fortunately, at the critical moment, they arrived at the medical clinic just before the horde of zombies closed in. This saved their lives. They immediately blocked the entrance of the clinic with objects and, once they had calmed down, the crown prince took charge and commanded everyone. The women, children, elderly, and infirm were all hidden in the warehouse, while those capable of fighting armed themselves and guarded the last line of defense. Meanwhile, on the other side, Cho Biampal and the officials were happily eating on the boat, unaware of the impending danger. Unbeknownst to them, the mother of the magistrate, who had boarded the ship with them, secretly brought her deceased son on board to prevent his body from being burned. When the people on the boat heard the commotion, they gathered around the cabin door to see what was happening. Suddenly, the magistrate turned into a zombie and charged at them. Chaos erupted on the boat, turning it into a hellish scene. Meanwhile, the people at the medical clinic survived a tense night and finally saw the dawn. They breathed a sigh of relief as they watched the horde of zombies gradually recede. After the incident, everyone was deeply moved by the crown prince's righteousness and gratitude. They all knelt down to express their thanks for his life-saving actions. Li Chang didn't say much but instead assigned people to search for food and treat the injured. He didn't get angry even when children disturbed him and even shared his meager food with them. This scene was observed by Yang Xin, who was sitting nearby. Yang Xin had previously been a deserter, disappointed with the Joseon dynasty. However, seeing Li Chang's sense of justice reignited his hope. When he heard that Li Chang planned to go to Anju, Yang Xin approached him and offered to guide him. Being a native of Anju himself, he knew the way. However, Mu Yong, the bodyguard, was reluctant to trust him because he had witnessed Yang Xin's skills during yesterday's escape. An ordinary civilian wouldn't remain calm and use a firearm to shoot zombies accurately in the forehead. Just as Yang Xin was about to say something, a commotion suddenly came from outside the door. Everyone immediately became alert, thinking that the zombies were attacking again. However, the commotion was soon followed by shouting, accusing Crown Prince Li Chang of being a criminal. He violated the orders of the Korean king and needs to be sent back to the palace for investigation. It turns out that these people are members of the Forbidden Army sent by Prime Minister Zhou Hakzhou. Upon receiving news of his son's death, Zhou Hakzhou lost his sanity and became determined to avenge his son. Believing that Li Qiang was responsible for his death, he directly ordered the Forbidden Army to kill Li Qiang on sight. The troops outside the door, seeing no movement inside, immediately released a volley of arrows. Many people didn't have time to react and were killed by the arrows, witnessing innocent civilians dying because of him. Li Qiang's gaze became even more resolute. Realizing that they couldn't sit idly by, they took advantage of the chaos caused by the invading army. Using the smoke as cover, Yangshen launched an attack. Using a matchlock gun to repel the advancing Forbidden Army, Li Qiang and Mu Yong took the opportunity to escape through the main gate. Mu Yong hid in the forest, using his whistle to confuse the Forbidden Army, leaving them disoriented. Once everyone settled down, they all headed towards Anju together. Meanwhile, another leader of the pursuing Forbidden Army received a confidential report, which only said Anju. He immediately ordered his men to light the beacon at Dongrai. In the capital of Hanyang, people saw the beacon from Dongrai and thought that the Japanese pirates were attacking again. The Grand Secretary took this opportunity to request an audience with the king, believing that the king had been threatened by Zhou Hakzhou, preventing them from meeting. However, this time, King Yangzhou directly made way for them, revealing his deranged state. The sight of the king in such a condition frightened the group of ministers, causing them to retreat in fear. Prime Minister Zhou Hakzhou took advantage of the situation to explain that the king was suffering from an incurable illness and would soon ascend to heaven. He also revealed that the same disease had broken out in Dongrai, hence the beacon being lit. Following this, Zhou Hakzhou accused the Grand Secretary and his family of treason and executed them. This left Crown Prince Li Qiang without his most powerful ally. In the dead of night, Zhou Hakzhou entered the queen's palace with a box. Although the queen and her father were on the same side, he had secretly killed someone without informing her, which showed a lack of respect. She began to put on a show, but when Zhou Hakzhou opened the box, he discovered it contained the severed head of his own brother. His previously arrogant demeanor turned into shock. On the other side, Zhou Hakzhou maintained a serious expression, indicating that he had the power to both elevate her to her position and bring her down from it. They were now in dire straits, so regardless of the circumstances, the queen had to bear a son, otherwise, all their plans would be in vain. He also stated that he would kill the crown prince and anyone related to him, holding the queen's family for the bloodshed of the Li family.